Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted? Someone who promised you the world, only to snatch it away at the last second? Well, buckle up, because what I'm about to tell you will make your blood boil, and then make you smile with the sweetest satisfaction you've ever felt. Welcome back to Revenge with Amanda, where karma isn't just a concept, it's an art form. I'm Amanda, and today I'm sharing a story that proves sometimes the best revenge is simply letting people destroy themselves. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button because we're about to dive into a tale of workplace betrayal, family favoritism, and the most beautiful comeuppance you've ever heard. But before we begin, let me ask you this. What would you do if your boss, someone who mentored you for 3 years, suddenly gave your hard-earned promotion to his completely unqualified niece? Would you rage? Would you quit? Would you plot immediate revenge? Well, I did none of those things. Instead, I smiled. And that smile? It was about to become the most expensive expression my boss had ever seen. Let me paint you a picture of my life 3 years ago. I was 28, fresh out of my MBA and hungry to prove myself in the corporate world. I landed a position at Morrison & Associates, a mid-sized consulting firm that specialized in business restructuring. My boss, Richard Morrison, yes, the Morrison of Morrison & Associates, took me under his wing from day one. Richard was everything you'd expect from a successful CEO: sharp suits, silver tongue, and the kind of confidence that could sell ice to Eskimos. He was also, I believed, a mentor who genuinely cared about my career growth. "Amanda," he'd say during our monthly one-on-ones, "you have something special. The way you analyze market trends, the way you connect with clients, it's rare. Stick with me, and I'll make sure you reach the top." And stick with him I did. For 3 grueling years, I worked 70-hour weeks. I traveled to client sites across the country, sometimes spending weeks away from home, restructuring failing businesses and saving jobs. I brought in over $2.3 million in new contracts, more than any other associate in the company's history. I didn't just meet expectations, I obliterated them. While my colleagues were struggling to close 1 major deal per quarter, I was closing 3. While they were presenting basic PowerPoint slides, I was creating comprehensive business transformation blueprints that had clients calling Richard personally to praise my work. The recognition felt incredible. Richard would parade me around at company events, introducing me as the future of this company and the most talented analyst I've ever worked with. He promised me that when the senior partner position opened up, and it was opening up because Janet Williams was retiring, it would be mine. "It's practically guaranteed, Amanda," Richard told me just 6 months ago. "Janet's already recommended you for the position. The board loves your work. Start thinking about what you want your new office to look like." I was on cloud 9. Senior partner at 31? It was everything I dreamed of and more. The position came with a $180,000 salary increase, equity in the company, and the respect I'd been craving since I first stepped into the corporate world. Fast forward to 3 weeks ago. Richard called me into his office, and I walked in, expecting to discuss the details of my promotion. Instead, I found him sitting behind his desk with an expression I'd never seen before, somewhere between guilt and defiance. "Amanda, sit down. We need to talk." The tone was wrong. Everything about the moment felt wrong. But I sat down, maintaining my professional composure even as my stomach began to churn. "I've made a decision about the senior partner position," he began, not meeting my eyes. "I've decided to give it to someone else." The words hit me like a physical blow. "I'm sorry, what?" "My niece, Brittany, just finished her MBA at Northwestern. She's young, fresh, and I think she'll bring a new perspective to the company." Brittany. I knew Brittany. She was 24, had never worked a real job in her life, and her idea of business strategy came from watching Shark Tank. She'd interned at the company the previous summer and spent most of her time on Instagram, posting selfies from the office bathroom and complaining about having to actually work 8-hour days. "Richard," I said, my voice carefully controlled with all due respect, "I've brought in over $2 million in new business. I've restructured 12 companies successfully. I've worked 80-hour weeks for 3 years. Brittany has an MBA and your DNA." He had the audacity to look annoyed. "This isn't about qualifications, Amanda. This is about fresh blood, new ideas. Brittany represents the future." "And what do I represent?" "You represent, well, you're valuable in your current position. We don't want to lose that." That's when it hit me. He'd never intended to promote me. I was too valuable where I was, bringing in clients, working ridiculous hours, generating revenue while being paid a fraction of what I was worth. I was the golden goose, and he had no intention of killing it by promoting me to a position where I might have actual power. But here's the thing about golden geese. We're not as helpless as people think. I could have screamed. I could have thrown my laptop across the room. I could have marched straight to HR and filed a complaint that would have made headlines. But instead, I did something that clearly unsettled Richard more than any of those reactions would have. I smiled. Not a fake smile. Not a bitter smile. A genuine, almost amused smile that came from somewhere deep inside me. "You know what, Richard?" I said, standing up from my chair. "You're absolutely right. Brittany does represent the future." The confusion on his face was priceless. He'd clearly prepared for anger, tears, maybe even threats. He hadn't prepared for acceptance. "I'm glad you understand," he said cautiously. "Oh, I understand perfectly. And I want you to know I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure Brittany succeeds in this role." And I meant every word. See, here's what Richard didn't know about me. Before business school, I spent 2 years working at a legal aid clinic, helping small business owners navigate corporate law. I knew employment law inside and out. I also knew something about Morrison and Associates that Richard seemed to have forgotten in his nepotistic haze. The company had recently signed a massive contract with Hartwell Industries, a manufacturing giant that was on the verge of bankruptcy. The deal was worth $4.8 million, the largest contract in the company's history. The restructuring process was incredibly complex, involving union negotiations, environmental compliance issues, and federal regulatory requirements. Guess who had spent the last 8 months developing the entire restructuring strategy? Guess who was the only person in the company who fully understood the intricacies of the Hartwell situation? That's right, me. And guess who Richard had just decided to put in charge of the entire Hartwell project as her first major assignment as senior partner? Sweet, inexperienced, Instagram-obsessed Brittany. I wasn't going to sabotage anything. I wasn't going to withhold information or set traps. I was simply going to do exactly what Richard asked me to do, make sure Brittany succeeded. The Monday after my promotion meeting, Brittany strutted into the office like she owned the place. Designer heels, designer handbag, and the kind of confidence that can only come from never having experienced real failure. She immediately scheduled an all-hands meeting to introduce her vision for the company's future. I sat in the back, still smiling that same smile that had unnerved Richard. "Hi, everyone," she chirped, looking more like she was about to start a YouTube makeup tutorial than lead a business meeting. "I'm super excited to be your new senior partner. I have, so many ideas for how we can revolutionize our approach to client relations." For the next 30 minutes, she used phrases like synergistic optimization, disruptive innovation, and leveraging our core competencies, without any apparent understanding of what these words meant. She talked about implementing cutting-edge social media strategies and millennial-focused branding initiatives for companies that were literally on the verge of bankruptcy. I watched the faces of my colleagues, people who had been doing this work for decades, as they realized what they were dealing with. The barely contained horror in Janet Williams' eyes as she sat through her replacement's presentation was almost worth the betrayal I'd experienced. After the meeting, Richard pulled me aside. "I need you to work closely with Brittany on the Hartwell project," he said. "Show her the ropes, help her understand the complexities." "Of course," I replied. "I'll make sure she has everything she needs to succeed." And I did. I gave her everything. Every document, every analysis, every strategic recommendation I developed over 8 months of intensive work. I explained the union situation, the environmental regulations, the federal compliance requirements. I walked her through the entire restructuring timeline and introduced her to all the key stakeholders. The problem wasn't that I didn't give her the information. The problem was that she was fundamentally incapable of understanding or implementing any of it. The first sign of trouble came during Brittany's initial client meeting with Hartwell's executive team. I wasn't supposed to be there. She was, after all, the senior partner now. But she specifically requested my presence for support. The meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. Brittany showed up at 9:15, wearing an outfit more appropriate for a nightclub than a boardroom, carrying a Starbucks drink and apologizing for being late because she'd had trouble finding parking. The Hartwell executives, serious, no-nonsense business people who were trying to save their company and their employees' jobs, stared at her in bewildered silence. "Sorry, I'm late, guys," she said, settling into her chair and immediately pulling out her phone to check notifications. Traffic was, totally crazy. "But I'm here now, so let's get this party started." Party started, indeed. For the next hour, I watched in fascination as Brittany attempted to discuss complex manufacturing restructuring with people who had been in the industry for 30 years. She confused OSHA regulations with OHSA, which isn't even a thing. She suggested they could save money by going viral on TikTok instead of paying for traditional marketing. When asked about union negotiations, she brightly suggested they just, be super nice to everyone, and I'm sure it'll work out. The meeting that was supposed to last 2 hours was cut short after 60 minutes. The Hartwell executives politely thanked us for our time and said they'd be in touch. As we walked back to the car, Brittany was oblivious to the disaster that had just unfolded. "I think that went really well," she said, checking her reflection in her phone camera. "They seemed nice. Did you see how they were all looking at me?" I think they were impressed. They were looking at her all right. Like she was a particularly fascinating car accident. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched the Hartwell situation spiral completely out of control. Brittany missed crucial deadlines because she didn't understand their importance. She submitted regulatory documents with fundamental errors that I had to quietly fix behind the scenes. She scheduled meetings with union representatives without understanding basic labor law, nearly triggering a strike that would have destroyed any chance of successful restructuring. But the real catastrophe came when she decided to take initiative and make changes to the restructuring plan without consulting anyone. See, the plan I'd developed was delicate. It involved carefully timed layoffs, strategic asset sales, and precise coordination with federal regulators. Every piece had to happen in exactly the right order, or the entire thing would collapse. Brittany decided the timeline was too slow and tried to accelerate everything by 3 months. The result was chaos. The union filed a grievance that triggered federal oversight. The environmental compliance deadlines became impossible to meet. The asset sales she'd rushed through happened at massive losses because there wasn't time for proper bidding processes. And through it all, I continued to smile and provide support, exactly as Richard had asked me to do. The call came on a Thursday afternoon. Richard's voice was tight with panic. Amanda, I need you in my office. Now. I found him pacing behind his desk, his usually perfect hair disheveled, his tie loosened. On his desk was a letter with the Hartwell Industries letterhead. "They're terminating the contract," he said without preamble. "Effective immediately. They're citing fundamental breaches of professional competency and inability to meet basic industry standards." I sat down calmly, maintaining that same smile that had been driving him crazy for weeks. "I see. That's unfortunate." "Unfortunate?" His voice cracked. "Amanda, this is a disaster. This contract was worth almost $5 million. It was going to set us up for the next 5 years. Well," I said thoughtfully, "maybe Brittany can use her social media expertise to find replacement clients." The look he gave me could have melted steel. "This isn't a joke, Amanda. The board is furious. Clients are questioning our competency. We might not survive this." "I'm sure it will work out," I replied. "After all, you said Brittany represents the future of the company." That's when he exploded. "What the hell is wrong with you? Don't you care about this company at all? Don't you care about your job?" I stood up slowly, my smile finally fading. "Richard, for 3 years, I cared about this company more than anything else in my life. I sacrificed relationships, health, and personal happiness to build your business. I brought you millions in revenue and asked for nothing except the respect and recognition I'd earned." My voice remained calm, professional, but there was steel underneath. "You chose to give my position to someone whose only qualification is sharing your DNA. You chose to put your family loyalty above the welfare of your company and your employees." "I didn't sabotage anything, Richard. I did exactly what you asked me to do. I supported Brittany and helped her succeed to the best of her abilities." The silence stretched between us. "The problem," I continued, "isn't that I didn't care about the company. The problem is that you forgot I was the one making it successful." As I turned to leave his office, Richard called out desperately, "Wait, Amanda, wait. We can fix this. I can make this right." I paused at the door. "I'll give you the senior partner position. Right now. Brittany can. We'll find something else for Brittany." I turned back to face him, and for the first time in weeks, my smile was genuinely amused. "Richard, that's very generous. But I'm afraid I won't be needing the position anymore." The confusion on his face was beautiful. "You see, while you were busy playing family favorites, I was having some very interesting conversations with the executives at Hartwell Industries. It turns out they were quite impressed with the restructuring plan I'd developed. They were just less impressed with the person you put in charge of implementing it." His face went pale. "They've offered me a position as their director of corporate restructuring. The salary is $240,000, more than your senior partner position would have paid. But more importantly, they've also offered Morrison and Associates a chance to salvage the contract under one condition." I paused for dramatic effect. "The condition is that I be the lead consultant on the project, reporting directly to them, not to you." Richard's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "So here's my counteroffer, Richard. You can hire me as an independent consultant at $500 per hour, triple my current rate to save the Hartwell contract and your company. I'll work exclusively on this project for the next 6 months, after which I'll be taking the position at Hartwell." The numbers were clearly spinning in his head. Even at $500 per hour, keeping the Hartwell contract would still be profitable. Losing it would be catastrophic. "Or," I continued, "you can stick with your original decision, keep Brittany in her position, and explain to your board and your employees why you let family politics destroy the company." That was 6 months ago. I'm writing this from my new office at Hartwell Industries, where I'm the youngest director in the company's history. The restructuring project I originally designed is now being hailed as a model for the entire industry. We saved over 2,000 jobs and turned a failing company into a profitable one. Richard? Well, Morrison and Associates survived, barely. They paid me $312,000 in consulting fees to fix the mess Brittany created. The company's reputation took a massive hit, and they've lost several major clients who questioned their judgment after the Hartwell debacle. Brittany lasted exactly 2 more weeks after I left. She was reassigned to a junior associate position, where she lasted another month before deciding that corporate life wasn't for her and starting an Instagram influencer career. Last I checked, she had 847 followers and was promoting teeth whitening products. But here's the most beautiful part of this story. Remember how I said I wasn't going to sabotage anything? I meant it. Everything that happened was the natural consequence of Richard's decision to prioritize family over competence. I didn't have to plot or scheme or manipulate. I simply stepped back and let merit speak for itself. The smile I wore during those terrible weeks wasn't malicious. It was the smile of someone who knows that sometimes the best revenge is simply allowing people to face the consequences of their own choices. So the next time someone betrays your trust, remember this story. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is exactly nothing. Sometimes the best revenge is simply giving people exactly what they asked for and letting them deal with the results. Richard wanted to put family loyalty above professional competency. I let him. Brittany wanted a high-powered position without earning it. I helped her get exactly that. They got everything they wanted, and I got something even better. I got justice. And that smile I wore through it all? It wasn't just satisfaction. It was the knowledge that I had played the game better than anyone else at the table. And I had won without compromising my integrity. What do you think? Was my revenge too subtle, or was it perfect? Have you ever been in a situation where someone's favoritism cost you an opportunity you deserved? Share your stories in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this story of workplace justice, hit that like button and subscribe to Revenge with Amanda for more tales of karma in action. Ring that notification bell, because trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Until next time, remember, the best revenge isn't always immediate, but it's always worth the wait.